Most people think they know what World War II uniforms looked like: olive drab, field gray, maybe camouflage smocks or naval blues. But beneath the surface of standard issue gear existed a hidden world, the secret uniforms built for missions so dangerous, so deniable, and so specialized that modern collectors are forbidden from owning them today. These weren't ordinary outfits. They were intelligence tools, deception weapons, and sometimes the only line between survival and execution. These are the World War II uniforms you won't find in surplus shops, reenactment groups, or museum gift shops, because they were never meant to survive the war, and in many cases were ordered destroyed. Let's unpack the most secret uniforms of the Second World War. Before the modern ghillie suit became famous, specialized World War II reconnaissance teams experimented with prototype concealment uniforms designed to erase the human shape entirely. These were not mass-produced. They were handcrafted, stitched from netting, burlap strips, and locally sourced vegetation. They were built for snipers, scouts, and pathfinders who needed to crawl within meters of enemy lines without being seen. Their existence was often classified because they revealed advanced camouflage principles that militaries didn't want leaked. After missions, many were burned rather than stored. A few museum examples exist, but collectors cannot legally own original versions because they are considered restricted military technology. Several intelligence agencies issued uniforms designed to mimic enemy attire for sabotage, disinformation, or extraction missions. Wearing one was basically a death sentence if captured. Most countries treated operatives caught in disguised uniforms as spies instead of soldiers. These uniforms were not simply replicas. They were engineered with hidden pockets, signal patches, and sometimes reversible colors so an agent could, switch identity in seconds. For obvious reasons, every nation that experimented with false flag uniforms classified them. After the war, they were confiscated or destroyed, and today originals are prohibited from private ownership because they are considered illicit impersonation gear. All major World War II armies tested camouflage patterns beyond what became standard issue. Some of these patterns were just too effective, or honestly, too confusing. Certain disruptive patterns blended so well into European forests that friendly fire incidents skyrocketed. Others interfered with Allied identification systems or broke early optical rangefinders. So, these experimental camo suits were issued only to small test units and, honestly, were quickly withdrawn. Many patterns remain classified or restricted, especially versions that were later adapted by Cold War special forces. And, owning originals is illegal in several countries, because some patterns are still tied to active military units or restricted visual signature technology. Occupation resistance groups created improvised uniforms for the exact moment they declared themselves lawful combatants. These uniforms were honestly pretty unusual. Civilian clothing layered with hastily printed armbands, insignia, or patches. They allowed fighters to switch from covert operations, which were illegal, to recognized combatant status, protected under wartime law, within seconds. Some of these armbands actually contained hidden markings, codes, or fabric strips that identified different cells. Others were tied to secret Allied supply networks. Because of the intelligence value and, the risk of exploitation, many originals are restricted by governments and heritage organizations. They can't be legally owned outside controlled archives. Sabotage squads tasked with destroying bridges, tunnels, and fuel depots received uniforms nothing like standard infantry gear. These suits needed maximum flexibility, zero noise signature, flame-resistant panels, concealed equipment loops, and waterproof pockets for time charges. Some had built-in insulation for crawling through freezing water tunnels. Others had darkened fabric that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. These uniforms were considered technical gear connected to explosive operations, and many countries still classify them as restricted because they reveal demolition procedures and tactical doctrine. Certain Northern Front units tested next-generation Arctic camouflage far more advanced than the white overcoats seen in photos. These suits used layered materials, wind-sealed seams, and multi-tone disruptive patterns that blended perfectly into snowdrift shadows. So, Only a small number were issued to deep penetration patrols in regions like Karelia, Svalbard, and northern Alaska. Because these were part of survival and infiltration research, a lot of them were actually marked destroy after use. They remain restricted today, partly because newer designs were, directly built from these prototypes. Museums have to hold them under special permits, and private ownership is banned in several countries. Some of the rarest and most secret World War II uniforms belong to units that officially did not exist. These were the teams involved in things like border infiltration, prisoner extractions, infrastructure sabotage, and high-risk intelligence collection. Their uniforms had no insignia, no national identifiers, and sometimes, no standardized cut. They were intentionally designed to provide no information if the wearer was captured. Many included hidden pouches for microfilm or coded messages. After the war, these uniforms were gathered, catalogued, and locked away. The few that escaped official destruction cannot be bought, sold, or owned legally. They are classified as restricted espionage artifacts. The secrecy around these uniforms isn't just historical. Many contain early versions of technologies still used in modern special operations, like signature-breaking camouflage, identity-switching gear, concealment engineering, intelligence-coded markings, and specialized demolitions wear. Because they overlap with modern reconnaissance and espionage equipment, governments treat them like sensitive military hardware. They belong only in archives and controlled museums. These secret World War II uniforms reveal something surprising. The war was far more technologically experimental than most people realize. Behind every familiar photograph of marching soldiers were hidden teams wearing gear the world wasn't supposed to see. Uniforms designed not just for fighting, but for disappearing, deceiving, infiltrating, and surviving. They weren't meant to become collectibles. They were meant to leave no trace at all.